Welcome back to Talkin Knicks. We're doing player profile and projections like we've been doing. If you've been listening, thank you. Today, we've got one of the fun ones. The Knicks' first pick in the draft this year, Kevin Knox, the rookie forward out of Kentucky. Lots of hopes and dreams on this young man's shoulder. Let's talk about it. Let's talk Knicks. Today, I am joined by Thomas Piccolo of Talkin Knicks in his debut of Basketball Index fame. Tom, how you doing?
Jake, I'm doing well. I appreciate that shameless plug there, too. Yeah, Basketball Index launched today. I'll be covering the Knicks there as well as here.
If there's anything I know, it's being shameless. Also joining us today, Kenneth Andrew Poon, KP Swiss. That's not really your nickname, but Ken, how you doing, brother?
Yeah, and I'd just like to point out to the audience that I am the original KP. I had it before Porzingis, so I'm just trying to reclaim that. So I appreciate you using that here so we can get the word out to the Knicks fans.
That'll be good. That'll be good.
Yep.
I'm sure you'll get the KP reputation in the Garden soon enough. And speaking of reputations in the Garden, we're hoping a man that gets a good rep soon, young Kevin Knox, the Knicks' first-round pick out of Kentucky. 6'9", 215 pounds. He came in hot with the Fortnite jacket on draft night, which gains you some fans and loses you others. We've talked about a little bit on the offseason pod what kind of thoughts ran through our head, but right now that's not too important. He's on the team. We've seen doses of him in Summer League and now in the preseason games. Tom, I'll kick it to you first. Where are you on Kevin Knox? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, Knox, we did talk a little bit about him in the preseason pod, like you mentioned. When he was drafted, I was pretty high on his potential as kind of like a stretch four who could play the wing, like just a big wing. You know, in the modern NBA, you can't have enough big wings. Kevin Knox kind of fits that. He's got a great frame on him, great NBA body. You know, I like to talk about that. And in Summer League, he killed it, like we talked about in the preseason pod. But in preseason, not so much. It's been kind of a different situation. He's averaging just under 9 points per game in the 5 preseason games to go along with 6 rebounds, not bad, and just under 1 assist. He is shooting 32.7% from the field, including just under 16% on about 4 3-point attempts per game. So those numbers are pretty startling when you read them all out in a row like that. But, the expectation is, like, this is a rookie. How much are we really expecting him to be efficient at this point? It's his first few games of the season. So I'm not scared. I'm not worried about this or anything. But, just hoping he kind of turns it around pretty quickly.
Ken, I know your heart sunk a little bit when the Knicks passed on your boy Bridges from Villanova, but we get Knox. And let's be honest, he looked better in the Summer League than everyone expected, and then we all jumped aboard the train, partially because we had to. But where are you at on Knoxy, Fort Knox?
Yeah, it's like Greg, our other co-host who's not here today, says, he's on my team, so I'm going to root for him. But you're right. I did not have a positive reaction to our drafting of him. But like I said in our off-season recap, I think there were a lot of reasons for that. You don't see much of the players at Kentucky because they play in not a great NBA system, and they play with a lot of other very talented players. So they're not given their chance to kind of shine and show what they can do. So we didn't know enough about him. And then he really did show flashes in the Summer League of athleticism, and he was just a lot bigger than I had initially thought. Like, he's definitely a guy that looks like he's going to be the kind of prototypical four. Well, not the prototypical four, but the new age, stretch four. And, all those things kind of kind of added up to him being to a lot of optimism about him. And like Tom said, he's cooled down a little bit in the preseason games, but really he hasn't cooled down as much as you might think. I think Tom said it was something like 32.8% in the preseason for a field goal percentage. He only shot 35% in the summer league, and he earned, all summer league honors just because he was given the opportunity and more volume shots to, put up a lot better numbers. Now, he had a couple pretty decent games in the few preseason games. I think he had 2 double-doubles with points and rebounds. They weren't crazy double-doubles. I think both of them were around 10 and 10. I think a little bit above that, maybe on the point side. But, this is going to be something you're going to be seeing a lot of inconsistency, and him having good nights and bad, because he's a rookie and he's a young rookie, and, he's just really getting used to playing the game at this level. Now, I just want Knicks fans, and I feel like I do this for all the players, I just want them to kind of level their expectations, because they either get too high or too low on people all the time. And I feel like that's kind of happened with Knox already, with the way that people saw him in the summer league and him, earning all summer league honors and then coming into the preseason not having a great showing. That there's been a huge swing of, this guy's the future, he's going to be a great player, to now, maybe we made a mistake. And it's always somewhere in the middle. I think he's going to be a good player, but I think he's a rookie, so give the guy some time to develop.
Yeah, and Kenny, you made a good point about the consistency thing. So, his scoring efficiency will fluctuate wildly all season, as all rookies do. But what you want to see in terms of consistency is just effort, and one place that comes through is in rebounds. And it looks like he is an aggressive rebounder for his size and position. So, that's going to be great because, especially if you have kind of Porzingis eventually playing the 5, I think that's sort of his best position. And Knox's most natural position is the 4. It's not like Kristaps is a monster rebounder in there. So we're going to need an aggressive rebounding 4 going forward. So as much as we see of Knox grabbing boards, cleaning up the glass on defense and offense, that's just going to be icing on the cake.
Yeah, and I think another thing that we've talked about in a bunch of the other pods is just with the new coaching staff, and kind of the question is, how are they going to use all these players? And, there's in the front court, there's not a whole ton of choice, and we've talked about this a bunch, but also at the wing positions, there's not a ton of options. So he's going to see a lot of minutes, and, he's going to be given the opportunity to make mistakes and continue playing, something that Hornacek didn't do last year with Frank, that a lot of people wanted to see, was, giving him the opportunity to play through his mistakes. And Knox is going to get that. So we're hoping that he develops into a good player.
Yeah, and one of the things that's been jumping out to me with Knox, looking back over his games at Kentucky, looking over some of the preseason and summer league games, I think we're going to see a lot of inconsistency, and that shouldn't be surprising. He's a rookie, right? But, you go through his Kentucky game log, you see a couple 34s, you see a 25, a 21, and you see a 6, a 7, an 8, a 9. And that's college ball. And I know the Kentucky system hasn't always been conducive. Did I use that word right? For guys coming to the pro game. It's a little more congestive. Coach Cal does his thing. Devin Booker's a guy who we saw. If he got to show off his talents a little better at Kentucky, he's probably a higher draft pick. Worked out for the Suns. It's also gone the other way too, with I think some guys like James Young, Scalabrine, not almost hiding what may be some of their limiting skills. It's kind of genius if you really think about it. But Tom, what are you going to be zoning in on, either statistically or with the eye test, by really judging Kevin Knox's rookie season?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a few things. One thing that really impressed me coming out of Kentucky was, I've mentioned before, the versatility of his jump shot, coming off of screens, curling around screens, pulling up, his ability to shoot from deep, mid-range. I'm really curious to see how that translates at the NBA level, if he's still able to have that versatility in his shot, because he has the size to get shots up over just about any defender. And if he can include a versatile jump shot into that equation, like he's gonna be tough to stop. So I'm gonna be tracking his shooting numbers and not just raw field goal percentage, but also the types of shots he's taking. Are they assisted? Is he spotting up a lot, or is he creating his own offense? I don't expect him to really be doing a lot of creating for others. And just in preseason, he's averaging just under 1 assist per game and 3 turnovers per game. So, high turnovers just comes with the rookie territory. But is he going to be able to create for others? I don't think so, and I don't really have that in my expectations set for him. But it's mostly going to be as a scorer, right? I think a little bit on the defensive end too. I'm a defensive first guy. I'm a two-way player guy. I don't know. Everyone is, I guess, if you want to win basketball games, or at least you should be. But Greg actually would argue at that point if he were here. I know Greg's not a defensive guy, but I think first and foremost, I'll be looking for Knox's ability to score. That's what fans are going to want to see.
Ken, scoring, I think we're all on a similar page there. Do you want to talk about percentages at all? Are those going to be a big factor for you? Is it kind of more eye test aggressiveness type stuff? What about you?
I think it was weird that Tom said he's a defense first guy after he mentioned offense first, because I am a defense first guy, and I'm going to mention defense first. As far as what I want to see from him is I want to see him, work hard at playing defense. Now, playing 4, if he's a little bit skinny, so if he has to body up bigger players, he's going to struggle, but I just want to see him out there competing. And I know Tom's talking about this with guys like Trey Burke, who isn't a great defender, but he goes out there and he tries. And that's what I want to see from Knox, and I want to see him try to develop into a good defender, because he's got tools, but so often you talk about guys with tools to become great defenders who just don't, and like Andrew Wiggins comes to mind. But if he can do that, I think that's gonna be the thing that could take him from being a solid volume scorer to just a very good player in this league. Because the Knicks have guys who can shoot. They have guys who are going to be taking a lot of shots, and I think if we're gonna build a team and we're gonna try to go out there next year and get a big name free agent, and we're going to have KP come back, those guys are going to be handling most of the scoring. If he can be a tertiary, there's a fun word for you, a scorer for them after KP and whoever they bring in, and maybe Trey Burke sticking around and being a scorer off the bench, if he could be that guy and play defense at the 3 and the 4 as a kind of a switchable wing, that would be the thing that makes him a great player.
Yeah, Kenny, what does the Garden like more than a guy who just competes and gives maximum effort all the time? Like, why do you think the Garden loves Enes Kanter despite him being completely unlikable? or Ron Baker has become a fan favorite. It's because these guys all bust their ass. They try so hard. So, if Knox shows up and he competes, that's a great point.
Yeah, and like you said, we're gonna need defenders out there, and the idea of having Kristaps Porzingis patrolling the center, and then Frank Ntilikina on the outside, and then whatever scores you have scoring. If you can have Knox as a big wing defender and have him and Frank playing some switch defense, that's something to dream about as a Knicks fan base who remembers the '90s Knicks and that was built on defense.
I know it's early to be talking titles or anything like that, but for the last decade plus, the NBA Finals have gone through LeBron James, and you needed a big wing defender to have a shot to compete at a title. And I could see that being the case for years to come with your Durant's, with Giannis, who is somehow a wing despite being 7 feet tall. You need those big wing defenders because those guys are just, year after year, those are the MVP candidates. Those are the guys who are toughest to stop on defense.
Yeah, and I want to just go back to kind of a point I made briefly that I don't want to lose sight of, but I don't expect him to be a great defender from day one. I just want to see him develop in that area because I think he's going to end up being a solid scorer, but the defense is the question mark, and that's just when I want to see him develop.
Yeah, and I hate to go too big picture, 30,000-mile view. That said that pretty poorly. But let's be honest, the percentages aren't going to matter too much. The defense isn't going to matter too much. We just want to see the flashes, some development, and the potential, because the Knicks have put a lot of their future on this guy and Frank. If we're really hoping to build something with some free agents this offseason and whatever pick we get this year, I mean, those guys are currently at the core of it. So our favorite, the over-under, and I think I'm going to go with an interesting one because it's very different situations, but it's a guy that he's been compared to. And from what we saw from this guy last year, let's hope the comparisons continue. Jason Tatum in Boston. Here's a guy who came out, similar skill sets, higher pick, and he also has a great coach, but he has more guys that need the basketball in their hand than Knox will need. I think his percentages are going to be very much out of range for Knox this year, but I'm going to go for it and see who bites. Tatum averaged 13.9 points per game last year. Over under for Knox, 13.9 points per game. Who needs it? Who wants it?
So that's a tough one because I feel like that's a pretty good line, because it could go in a couple different ways, because there's so many guys in the Knicks who are kind of thought of as scorers, like guys like Trey Burke, guys like Enes Kanter, that may be taking shots, but depending on how Fizdale deploys them, maybe he just ends up giving Knox a bunch of shots. I think it's going to be not going to get as many shots as people are thinking he's going to, so I think he's going to end up more in the 11, 12 points per game range, so I'm going to take the under.
Thomas?
Yeah, I think that's some smart rationalizing there, Kenny. It's tough to argue with. It's just like seeing his shooting percentages Jake mentioned. I mean, Tatum, his 3-point percentage halfway through the season was like a record. I think he was above 50% at his volume. I'm not sure what he finished at, but I mean, he was shooting at an unsustainably high rate. And Tatum was also in the perfect position for him, right? With, you mentioned the complementary players around him, the coach, the scheme, everything about it. We've seen what happens to players when they leave Boston. So it is tough to compare him to Jason Tatum at this point, but I will take the slight under. I think he'll be in closer to the 13 points per game range.
I'll bite my own biscuit. Is that a phrase? I mean, I think these percentages are going to be – no, it's not a phrase. That's fine. I think the percentages are going to be ugly. Let's be honest. He's going to shoot under 40% from the field. So the over-under that I was terrified to do was his 3-point percentage. As we just talked about, I think he was shooting 15% in the preseason from three. That's a scary number. But when you think about it, I mean, this guy on a given night is going to be one of the 3 go-to scorers. It's going to be Trey Burke, Tim Hardaway. Trey Burke, we have hopes for, but this was a guy who was in the G League for a little bit last year. And also, let's be honest, we hope that Frank is going to be getting some of the clutch minutes for what he can do defensively. And then on the offensive end, we've seen Tim Hardaway have big nights. We've seen Tim Hardaway have bad nights. Plus, he also has a little bit of an injury history right now. I just think this guy's going to get his lumps. It's Fizdale's supposed to be this empowering coach. There's minutes to be had at small forward and power forward. I think percentages are going to be ugly, but maybe this is an ugly New York-Boston thing. Give me 14.1. I'll go over by 0.2. Tom, call me an idiot, and let's wrap this up.
Well, no, I think that a big factor in this, you mentioned that multiple times the percentages will be ugly, and I think you're right about that. But one thing that hasn't been ugly has been his free throw percentage, which has been in the upwards of 80% or higher. And I'm really curious to see if he can just get to the line. That was something that young Carmelo was good at.
just using that physicality, that big body, and getting to the free throw line. The Knicks have really struggled to get to the line in recent years. KP doesn't get so many calls. He's kind of too tall, too skinny. He likes to just shoot over the top of people without drawing a ton of contact, or at least it doesn't look like he draws a ton of contact. So, yeah, if Knox can just like get to the line a bunch, I'm going to consider that a win too.
And Tom, you cut off for a second there, but I think what you were saying is that while his shooting percentages weren't great, his free throw percentages were great. Were solid for a rookie, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's been shooting upwards of 80% in the preseason, and I believe he had some solid percentages in college too. I know, Jake, you had his stats up. Is that right?
77% at Kentucky. He went to the line 4.4 times per game, made 3.4. He was just barely second on the team at going to the line. So, and the first guy that went to the line was one of their bigs who shot 60%. So I think teams were kind of okay sending him to the line. And then it was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the other lottery pick from Kentucky. So that really is a great point, and it'll be interesting to see. We've talked about what the Knicks offense is going to be looking like if they're going to try to push as much as they can, which you think they would with a lot of these young guys. And I think tying into that, a big word I said before that I think is going to be huge with Knox, that was somewhat problematic with Frank last year, is the aggressiveness. This guy has that Carmelo, go get it, go get a bucket mentality. If he can bring that to the 10, and again, the percentages will be bad, but if he can get to the line 4 or 5 times a night, I mean, this is a guy that can make free throws, we think and hope at this point. So that would be big for him.
Yeah, we want to see him compete. We want to see him bang and just try hard and get to the line. Just, it doesn't have to be pretty in this rookie season. Just make it happen.
Speaking of not pretty, I think that wraps it up, boys. I really enjoyed that, though. Thanks for listening. If you guys have been listening to these player profile and projections, if not, go Netflix and burn through them. Just ignore your boss for the next 2 hours or something like that. And if you have been listening, if you could throw us a 5-star review, we'd really appreciate you. And yeah, we've got more stuff coming. I mean, season's almost here, folks. So we appreciate you. We'll be having articles and pods and all of it. So thank you, and we'll be talking to you guys soon, hopefully.
Mixtape.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, sorry I covered my mic there for a second.
Yeah, maybe just note that for Jimmy and see if we can do anything with it. I think we covered it pretty much, but just in case.
He done did good. Okay, you guys want to get some Frank stats? Can I just bring my dog out really quick?
No, take your dog out.
No, don't take your fucking dog out.
He was chewing my jacket the entirety of that performance. So BRB and we'll do Frank.
Your flu game.
I don't think he heard you or didn't care. I'm not sure which.
So you're looking up Frank's stats?
Yeah, Frank, it's not really about stats, though. Three for 6 from 3 in the preseason. 14 for 31.
So this guy commented on my Reddit post. He said, "This has Ron Baker as both a better playmaker and perimeter defender than Frank, and Trey a better playmaker than both. Clearly an interesting model, but also clearly limited." Now,
where is Ron Baker on that article?
No, I don't think he's talking about my article. I think he's talking about just he must have looked up the Knicks specifically, like the player profiles that they have on the page.
On what page?
If you go to the Basketball Index and you type in specific players into the search bar, I believe there are like profiles of each of the players.
Oh, you told me that we couldn't do that.
You couldn't do it before the site went up.
Oh, the site wasn't up. That explains it.
The site went up at 5 p.m. today, so let's see. I haven't even tried it yet, but I'm assuming that's what the guy did because I didn't even mention Ron Baker once. But Trey Burke was a better playmaker than Frank and Ron Baker.
Yeah, that's accurate.
So I don't know what that guy's talking about. I mean, I guess being dubious that Ron Baker was a better defender than Frank.
Yeah, I'll respond to this guy. Because we've talked about this in our pod. Oh, I'm not on I'm not signed in. Whatever. Is that he was playing, like, he has a limited sample size and he was playing against scrubs. So, like, his defensive numbers would look better. How is playmaker defined? Do you know?
I do. Yeah, they have a page that describes all the data. So let's see. Offensive talent grades go here. Playmaking. Playmaking is graded using NBA passing data, synergy data, and PBP stats passing data. I don't know what PBP stats pass. It's called pbpstats.com. They must trust it a lot to use it. But it says from NBA passing data and along with from NBA passing data and along with offensive role data calculated using this method developed by Todd Whitehead, an expectation for assists can be calculated using teammate efficiency, potential assists, and passes. This expectation is compared to actual assists, allowing to measure how good a player was at creating assists within their offense. The other main factor is box creation, developed by Ben Taylor, which attempts to measure a player's ability to create scoring opportunities for teammates outside of just using assists. This category is aiming to calculate how good a player is at creating opportunities for teammates with their passing, with role and teammates accounted for.
I was zoning you out while I was answering that guy's question or that guy's comment. So I have no idea what you just said.
Boy. Hey, drop it.
Rosie, is that you? Yeah. What's up? No?
Hey. Come on. Good. Boy. You're right. The woman's a monster.
You killed Tom.
You ate her.
My hat's off to you, boys. That's a perfect crime.
Good movie. Now I forget. Do you like Frank or not like Frank?
It's okay.
Fair.
I just switched the laundry over here, guys. 1 second. I'm not going to run the wash or the dryer. I'm just going to run it. Just going to switch.
Do you, man?
Hold on. I need another drink.
Jake, are there any stats that you're interested in to hear about Frank? Like, is there anything you're curious about?
Maybe. I don't know. I guess the two things that come to mind with Frank are finishing around the 10, and I guess like how his 3-point. So he shot 31.8% from 3. I guess if the metrics show if they were all open or if they were contested or what.
I could look into that real quick, yeah. What did you say he shot from 3?
He shot 31.8.
31.8 is kind of bad.
Yeah. But it's also, I mean, the question coming into the season was, could he shoot it all? So I think we kind of take that. But all right. So hey now, ladies. Yeah.
Man, this guy really doesn't think that Trey Burke was a very good playmaker. I thought he was probably the best one on the team.
What did he respond to? Or what did he say?
He said to you, he said, Trey Burke hogged the ball and never passed unless it was to a teammate to score. He had low turnovers to assist because of it. He is okay as a playmaker, but not as good as this says. I don't think this guy really knows what he's talking about. I mean,
I agree with that because, like, Ron Baker and Trey Burke, or Ron Baker and Frank weren't like great playmakers.
but also like you know,
He averaged 4.7 assists last year.
man, a low turnover rate is really good. Like Ron Baker and Frank having really high turnover rates isn't a win for them. It's not like, oh, like Trey Burke hogging the ball and not passing unless it was to a teammate to score. I mean, that's
a good thing.
That's yeah.
If he was scoring very efficiently and not turning it over much, I think that's a good thing. Or if he was scoring very efficiently and then only passing to his teammates when they could score, that seems like a good thing, but whatever.
I mean, look, I appreciate the dialogue, okay?
Hey, we're up 12 right now. Or 12 upvotes.
Oh, is that what we have right now? 12 upvotes?
Yeah.
Pretty good. And 6 comments is a lot.
7 of them were me, so
7 of the likes were you?
yeah. That's how I have burners, man.
How many of the comments were you?
Just one.
Okay, we'll take that. All right, so I was gonna look up 2 things.
2 things.
C. Morrington stuck up for you.
Yeah.
This does.
I was wondering if that was you.
No, that wasn't me. I sent you guys a list of all my burner names.
It somehow escapes me.
Think I would come up with C. Morrington?
Let's see, we got players, we got shooting, we've got shooting by closest defender. We're gonna look at Frank's shooting here, Kenny.
It's crazy how bad Trey Burke is, or not Trey Burke, Ron Baker is.
Yeah, he's hot though.
Yeah, you kept saying that.
I had a hilarious tweet the other day that only 3 people saw because it was a response to Ryan Peredo.
Oh, you weren't on Twitter.
This is a long time ago on the Talkin Knicks Twitter.
Oh.
And he follows us. Ryan Peredo follows us.
He was always friendly.
Yes, he was. I see we have 1 viewer here. If that's is that you, Ryan Peredo?
Really weird that we have 1 viewer because it's being recorded on a lot of basketball.
It's probably Greg.
Greg, give us a sign if it's you.
Baxter.
Lord, give me a sign.
Mark
right.
twice if you're in Milwaukee.
How we feeling? We got stats?
I'm just going to go by heart, man. Got to follow your heart.
Like that.
Just let me know when I need to mute.
We will let you know.
Trouble. Trouble, trouble, trouble.
Ray La Montaña.
I said Joe Montaigne.
I said Joe Montaigne.
I never realized that Joe Montaigne was actually an actor. He's a famous actor.
Didn't know that.
It makes the joke better.
I think it does.
They'll never believe this. That's a really good, one of the few really good me and Nick Proch stories. Freshman year of college, Nick Proch was playing a baseball video game. We've got the door wide open because it's freshman year of college. That's how you meet people.
Yes, it is.
It's like 1 a.m. We shouldn't be up. I'm just watching Nick Proch play this baseball video game. And this person comes up And it's someone we've never heard of. We're like, what is this? And it's like ridiculous. It's a name that you would have heard of. Blah, blah, blah. We look into it. It was some kid that it was like Make-A-Wish, or he was sick, and his wish was to be like put in the game. So he was put in the game, and me and Nick Proch are like loopy 1 a.m. like giggling, like, wow, what is this? Because we thought we were getting punked or something. And then so we end up having like a big laugh, and we're like, wow, this is pretty wild. Tom?
Oh my God, no one's gonna believe this. Keep going.
So right then, the janitor that was like cleaning the bathrooms, the night janitor, walks by our room, and without us knowing, he's behind us. That's the exact quote he says. He goes, "They'll never believe this." And we're like, who's they? Who are you gossiping to? How long have you been in the doorway?
I love random stories like that.
It was one of those few moments I'll remember in life.
Isn't that the whole Bill Murray thing?
Yeah.
Who?
The Legend of Bill Murray.
Ghostbusters, SNL. Cubs fan.
Zombieland.
Not familiar.
It's like how I threw Zombieland out, as though that's something that you should know Bill Murray from.
He's good in that movie.
Thought it was a funny joke though, because he's just got a lot of better movies.
No, I mean he made a pretty epic cameo in that one.
Epic.
It is epic.
Garfield.
Holy Noodle did not like the use of epic.
Looks like Jess is here.
Hi, Jess.
Jess, you want a pod instead of Jake?
Hello. How you doing? Yeah. I can help put this away, though.
What a good boyfriend.
What a bad podcast mate. Podcast mate.
Pod teammate. Podcast teammate.
Oh, Lars. What was that? Yeah, we're just gonna be like 15 minutes.
I'll just go to the gym.
Oh. Yep. Yeah. Those are not.
Was this what you guys were talking about? This email that Jake sent around?
Yeah.
No, because I wasn't looking at my emails. So what's it all mean?
Pretty heavy question, man.
All right.
Put away some groceries though?
Oh, yeah. The grocery game.
Most dangerous game.
What they say. Do it once, you're hooked.
I have a few stats.
Seem like you got some stats.
Anyone know how many total 3-pointers Frank took last year? I'd like to know.
I could tell you.
Took 2 per game for 78 games. No one can do that math.
No, impossible.
156, that would be.
I'm going to fact check it.
Pretty sure it's 1,000.
Let's see here. I have it up. Says here he took 157.
Ooh, so that 2.0 wasn't exactly 2.0.
You got.
But I will say that on NBA.com, they have. Are there any other types of 3-pointers other than catch and shoot 3-pointers and pull up 3-pointers? Because they have those 2 things adding up to 156. They are missing a 3-pointer on NBA.com.
Half-court shot or something?
Yeah, maybe. All right, we can go ahead though. We can just go whenever.
3-point floater.
Nice.
It was kind of funny. You know how on Facebook you can see if someone's like a friend is about to respond to this comment or something like that?
Sure.
A friend is typing to reply.
Sure.
Someone was doing that for like 25 minutes and then just didn't leave anything.
Got scared.
It scared me. I'm scared.
Are they still watching?
Ryan Perdo.
He already got called out.
Big Ryan Perdo up. All right.
All right, I'm going to go on mute, and Jake, you can get this started.
I'll give you guys the 3, 2, 1. You crew run, run, run. You crew run, run. Welcome back. Talkin Knicks. We have another I giggle when I say exciting episode because it's one of the cornerstones currently for the Knicks, the franchise, the French Prince, Frank Ntilikina. I think I got it right that time, which will be rare. The young Frenchman enters his 2nd season, and his development is going to mean a lot for the Knicks throughout this year and future years. So let's talk Frank. Bump, 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 bump. Hello, 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 ladies and germs. Welcome back to Talkin Knicks, player profile and projection. The French Prince, Frank Brian Ntilikina. I didn't know his middle name was Brian. How about that? Brian with a Y, folks.
You could have given me a lot of guesses. I was not going to go with Brian.
Yeah, I'm a little shook from that. I don't know if I can go on, but if you'll remember, the Knicks took him with the 8th pick overall in the 2017 draft. He's currently just a little over 20. He was very young last year. He showed some unique skills, 6'5", 190. Showed a lot more on the defensive end than the offensive end. He finished the year 22 minutes per game, 5.9 points, 2.3 rebounds, 3.2 assists, 0.8 steals, 1.7 turnovers. So a lot of stats out there, none that jump off the board. There were nights where it looked pretty cool from Frank. I know I hate to get into analytics like that, but some nights he looked pretty cool. Other nights he looked like an 18-year-old Frenchman on the court. Kenneth, I normally accidentally skip you first. Today I'm coming to you because this is your boy, Frankie Smokes. Talk to me.
Yeah, Frank is my boy. Been my boy since well before the draft last year. I was pulling for the Knicks to draft him long before they actually drafted him, so I was pumped that happened. And I said it in a lot of the podcasts, but I'm a defense guy, and Frank has the defense, which I love. Tom Bone, on to you.
Yeah, I mean, I love defense just as much as the next guy, maybe even more. But
I hate watching you girls argue about who likes defense more. I'm done with it.
It doesn't get much nerdier than that. But and Jake, usually you mention the Basketball Reference nicknames, so I'll just throw them in real quick. You got the French Prince, which we all know. The other one they have here is the franchise.
I like that a
not
lot.
real.
I
That's
like
not
that a
real.
lot.
He has like 30 nicknames, and that's not one of them.
Make the shirt, John Boy.
I was gonna say
go.
put that on a tee. But listen, guys,
You still got the floor.
I want it. No, but I mean, if you can't get excited about a Frank Ntilikina player profile projection, then I've got some bad news for you for the rest of the season, because it's not going to get much better than watching the development of this guy. I just wrote a piece about him and the point guard situation for the Basketball Index, which I don't know when this pod will. Is this pod coming out tomorrow?
10/16, yeah.
Yeah. So the Basketball Index debuted yesterday, if you're hearing this on Tuesday, and basically what I covered there was sort of Frank's strengths, his weaknesses, and how Fizdale may be able to allocate the different minutes among Frank, Trey Burke, and Emmanuel Mudiay to get the most out of that roster. I'm excited to talk more about it. But Jake, where do you want us to go?
Well, and this is an interesting one, right? Because we look at last year and we saw a lot of good stuff we like. We saw a lot of stuff that's scary. We saw a lot of very sloppy turnovers. We saw him not being very aggressive on the offensive end. And I think the thing that we regret the most is just not seeing him on the court more. For what the Knicks did last year as a team, to see him only get 22 minutes, 9 starts. I mean, it's tough to get excited about Frank on the offensive end. I hope you guys can get me a little bit. But, I mean, defensively, he really was pretty special at times. He has the length. The body's going to develop more, and his knowledge of the game and NBA pace of play is only going to pick up. I mean, coming into the year, the two things we were most concerned about from all the scouting reports were that he wasn't going to be able to shoot. And not that he put up flashy numbers, but I think he put up acceptable numbers for a rookie. You obviously want to see a lot of growth. And then the other thing we heard about was speed of the game, and it didn't look like that was too much of a factor for him. It looked like when he wanted to go, he could go. I think the problem seemed to be that he was a little scared to be over aggressive and make a risky turnover, which, hey, hopefully down the line we look at and say, wow, he's great taking care of the basketball. But last year it looked like a lot of timidness, nervousness, Ken.
Yeah, and it's something that we've talked about on here before, but last year he was very mechanical in everything that he did. Every time he brought the ball up the court, it was pretty much, this is the play that we're supposed to run. This is the play I'm going to run. The first part of this play is I dribble over here, and then I stop, and then I pass it to this player. So you could pretty much see that thought process going through his mind, and the problem was that at times so could the defense. So there were several times where he dribble it up, start the play, and then just pass the ball to the other team. Obviously, that's a problem. Part of the issue, which we've talked about again on a bunch of the other podcasts, is he wasn't really allowed to play through his mistakes. And I think, like you were just saying, that caused him to kind of overthink things and try to, be more, going back to mechanical, but he was not really playing the game. He was thinking the game. And that, just doesn't work in basketball. It's you got to feel it, and it's poetry in motion, not to be too corny, but you have to go with the flow rather than, going with what's expected and, going with exactly what's diagrammed. Now, towards the end of the season, I think his best 2 games offensively were the last 2 games, because he was just, Hornacek just threw him out there. It's like, do whatever you want. And the last 2 games of the year, he scored 16 and 17 points. And I think he shot about 50% both of those games. 7 for 16 one night and 8 for 16 the other night. So when he is given that opportunity, he has shown flashes of being able to be a much smoother offensive player. And that's what we're hoping for in year 2, to see more of that development. We don't need anything special from him. I think his last preseason game, he had a pretty solid game. He went 9 points, 4 rebounds, and 5 assists to go along with 1 steal and 0 turnovers. Not a flashy line, but that's exactly what the Knicks need from him if he can continue to play defense the way that he's capable of and just play solid point guard play. So I have been his #1 fan from the day that he got drafted, and I don't know if I'm being too optimistic and you guys want to bring me down to earth a little bit, but I'm excited about this guy.
Now, Kenny, I can listen to you talk about poetry all night, but one of the sort of preeminent storylines from last year was Frank's role in the offense, right? So at the very beginning of the season, there was a lot of, Jake mentioned it, just a lot of consternation from Knicks fans that Jarrett Jack was getting too much burn. It was kind of eaten into Frank's minutes. But it really wasn't until Trey Burke came along in January. His first game, I think, was January 15th. And then Moutier came in a little later, that Frank's role really changed. So before Trey Burke got involved, Frank was assisting on 23.5% of his team's made shots when he was on the court, which was the second highest on the team behind Jarrett Jack. After Trey Burke came along, that number dropped to, he was 4th on the team in assist percentage. He was only assisting on about 18% of the made buckets on the court when he was there. So he was behind Trey, Burke, Jarrett Jack, and Moutier for 4th on the team. He really became more of a secondary ball handler versus the primary ball handler he was at the beginning of the season. And a lot of Knicks fans I'd say it was kind of split. People were like, you need to give this guy some shine, give him the chance to grow into that lead ball handler position. And others were saying, look, it's okay. He kind of looks like a 3-and-D type of wing. Like, that's a very valuable player to have in the Danny Green mold. If he can get that 3-point shot to come along, then there's nothing wrong with that. And having some nice creative off the dribble juice for a secondary creator, that's a very valuable thing too. So I'm curious to hear what you guys think, if you think there's an ideal role for him.
So, Tom, I think you bring up a very good point, especially going into this season when we don't really know what his role is going to be. Fizdale has said he's going to be a guard, and he's just going to, he's not going to label him a point guard. He's not going to label him a shooting guard. He's just going to be a guard, and he's going to go out there and play basketball. And, there is a certain sense that makes, particularly in the modern NBA, where, a lot of times the point guard in prime time isn't necessarily the primary ball handler. You'll see LeBron being the primary ball handler usually when he's in the game. And it's not only with LeBron, it's with other players in the league, but that can very well be the Knicks. If the Knicks end up bringing in another player next year, then Frank won't necessarily be the guy with the ball all the time. It might be someone else. But at the same time, I think there is value in having Frank be the primary playmaker for the regular season and developing those skills, and then just having that height and length at that position is just so helpful because you can go in so many different directions. If you want to bring in another, big player who can play shooting guard alongside him, who's, not necessarily a ball handler, then you can do that. If you want to have a guy next to him who's a smaller shooting guard who has some defensive liabilities, like a guy like Trey Burke, you can do that as well. So I think his best position, or the best thing that the Knicks can hope for, is that he develops into the Knicks point guard of the future. And while having him push over to play a little bit of wing isn't the worst thing in the world, and he'll still be a very valuable player, I think it's not as valuable as having, this 6'6", very long point guard who can defend multiple positions and give you more options as far as what you're going to do with the rest of your team.
Yeah, I'm almost full team Kenny there. This guy was drafted to be a point guard. And Kenny had the perfect phrase. That's where his value lies. If he can be a 6'5", I think the word was, it came out last year, he grew an inch. I think we're talking about a 6'6" Frank now. If he can be a dynamic point guard from that position, I think defensively, let's get defense out of here for now. Frank has shown us the potential. He's going to grow into his body even more. Hell, I just talked about him actually growing. Frank has shown the ability to defend the 1 and the 2. I think you're going to be able to factor the 1 and 2 and 3 into that when we're done, which is very special and what so many teams are looking for on defense nowadays. On offense, again, this guy was the 7th pick in the draft. We're not confident that his shooting is going to be Danny Green level or 3-and-D type. We think his passing can be, I think there's still a chance it can be dynamic. I don't think I want to say special. He's not in the Steve Nash type mold, Ken.
Yeah, and he showed very good flashes of being a great passer. If you remember the first game that he played, he had that, almost full court pass to Kyle Quinn for the easy dunk. And like, that was an amazing pass. And you saw that from time to time in the season. So I think you're exactly right. He can develop into a dynamic passer if, he's given that opportunity to develop that portion of his game.
And so going from there, so he still has a chance to be pretty special as a passer. His shooting, we're still skeptical of the form. to retweet Ken, very mechanical. It showed some development. This guy didn't really go to the 10 at all last year, which scares you a little bit. We're less than a free throw per game. That's a tough look, especially when that can be a special part of his game. So you hope to see more of that. But if we punt on this guy being a point guard, I feel like we are losing the player that he can be. I feel like, and I don't want to compare him to another Frenchman who I think Tom likes despite his contract, but do we really want to punt and turn this guy into Nicholas Batum already, Tom?
No.
Right?
That is not option A by any stretch. But I mean, you mentioned it. Frank he definitely struggled finishing around the rim. But like that happens with rookie point guards. I don't think that's necessarily a major concern going forward. He has the size, he has the length. It's just about showing the craft to be able to finish, and that's like the one area I'm expecting him to really see a major uptick. He's put on some muscle. You've seen from his Instagram posts and preseason, like he's got a bigger frame on him now. They're saying he's growing, like we mentioned. And so, yeah, finishing and getting to the line are going to be two areas that I'm going to be looking at specifically to see if he improves.
Yeah, and we saw it in the preseason a little bit. In the first game against Brooklyn, I don't remember who was guarding him, but he drove by and he just dunked on him. And it's like, oh, I'm 6'6" with a 7'3" wingspan. I can just dunk on people. So, like, I think you are going to see that a little bit as he realizes how he can use his height. He's just going to drive and go over people because he doesn't have to, absorb contact and try to get fancy. He's tall enough that he can just take it hard to the rack.
And I pulled up some stats on his shooting because we did mention his shooting there for a minute. And this is specifically on 3-point shooting. So about 19% of his total shots were wide open threes last year. And he shot 33.7% on those, which is below league average for a wide open three, but it's also not a bad shot, right, Kenny? That's kind of our rule of thumb, is that if you shoot 33.3% from three, it's the same as shooting 50% from two in terms of expected value on the shot. So like he shot 19% of his shots as wide open threes. He shot 11.7% of his shots as open threes. And there he shot just a tick better, about the same at 33.9%. So, I mean, when he's open or wide open, he's a capable shooter. The other number I want to throw out was on catch and shoot three-point attempts. So when someone was passing it to him and he's spotting up, he would hit on 36.1% of his catch and shoot threes. And that's versus 25% on his pull-up three-point attempts. So that's definitely a part of his game that he'll need to improve, because as a pick-and-roll ball handler, the threat of the pull-up three is such a huge part of the game today, thanks to guys like Steph Curry, Dame Lillard, Kemba Walker. And shooting 25% on those pull-ups is not going to, cut the mustard, Jake, as they say. But 36% on catch-and-shoot threes, like that's something to work with.
And I want to throw one more very small sample size statistic at you, Tom. And that's that in the summer league, he looked pretty good from three. He shot 3 of 6, which Again, it's only 6 shots, but he made 3 of them, so that's 50%. And I thought the bigger thing was he seemed to take his shot more confidently than he did last year. Like, he caught it and he realized he was open and he just went straight up, rather than last year. I think he had a little more hesitation before he took the shot. So I'm expecting a little bit of an uptick in his 3-point percentage this year, which was, I think, 31.8% last year, you said. So I'm expecting big things out of him, and I'm getting to the point where I can hear myself, and I know I'm being too optimistic after every other PPP when I told everyone to calm down about people, but this is my guy.
This is your guy, and we're cutting mustard all over the place. I think it's just interesting that, and I didn't want to harp on this, but now I do. In more than half the games he played last year, I was counting, and you guys know how I do with that. I want to say it was 43, but I could have missed 1 or 2. But more than half his games, he didn't shoot a free throw, which, give me some aggressiveness, Frank. A lot of nights you are going to be the bigger point guard. I need to see that. And the 3-point stuff, like you guys just ran through, I know Tom mentioned the 25% on threes in transition or pull-up threes. I'm not really too worried about that. I mean, would that be a nice part of Frank's game? Absolutely. But 36% on open threes, uncontested threes as a rookie, if you can be open and push that up to 40%, I mean, you are a threat now. So I'm really going to be looking for, and this is so obnoxious because this is today's basketball, but this is the reason we're talking about it. This guy needs to be able to draw contact at the rim and either A, finish, or B, go to the line, and he needs to make his open threes. And I think what's going to be interesting and also partially worries me about his development is the Trey Burke show this year and how that comes along. But if Frank does become dynamic, or not even dynamic, but quality at shooting threes and finishing around the 10, I feel like that is going to push him away from the point guard spot, Ken.
Yeah, and I just don't know. I feel like that's still where his value is. And Trey Burke, I've said before, I think his value is an off the bench scorer. I think his efficiency is going to tick down a little bit. And they actually do make a very interesting backcourt because, like I said earlier, Trey Burke is a smaller point guard, or a smaller shooting guard, basically. He's more of a shooter than a passer. And if those two can coexist in the backcourt, like, that's the kind of options that Frank gives you, because he has that height to be able to guard a few different positions, and then you can hide Trey Burke on another player, which I think Tom was mentioning in his article today on Basketball Index. Go check that out. But it gives you, just so many options. And like you said, if he can be a little bit more unselfish and attack the rim more, because he didn't do that at all last year. Pretty much it was dribble the ball up and pass it and start the play, like I was saying earlier. If he can take his chances and try to get into the rim, try to draw some fouls, that, like you said, that'll be a big boost to his game, and I think it'll make him more valuable as a point guard, just to be able to have that threat when you're trying to orchestrate the offense.
And guys, I don't want to derail us too much, but I made this point in my aforementioned articles, and I want to get your thought on this as well. So I said that how minutes should be allocated between Frank Ntilikina, Trey Burke, and Emmanuel Mudiay just depends on what the Knicks' goals are. If the Knicks are trying to be as competitive as possible, if they're trying to win as many games as they possibly can, then the answer is probably to give Trey Burke as many minutes at point as they can. He's the best scorer. He's the best playmaker of the group. But there'd be downsides to that, right? Like you would be hindering Frank's potential development. Mudiay, you wouldn't really be giving him a shot. And you'd also be potentially hurting your draft pick if you're going to actually be able to win a few more games, right? Like with Trey Burke getting most of the point guard minutes, maybe they end up being like the 10th seed in the East. Now, if the Knicks' focus is more to develop Frank and to give Mudiay a shot, then they're probably going to be worse, right? Like, just as it stands today, Burke is a better point guard. But if you want to develop Frank, you're going to be worse. You can get a better draft pick. But I said the potential downside there is that their inability to, or their like limitations at playmaking, there being Frank and Moutier's, that might inhibit or stunt the growth of other young guys like Knox and Mitchell Robinson. So what do you guys think about those points?
I think, and if I'm Coach Fizdale, which spoiler, I am. I just never told you guys. This is a pseudonym. No, I mean, if you're Fizz, I think you come into this year and you kind of have to blank slate it, right? You want to see Frank out there to start probably for 25 minutes or so. And you want him on the ball, you want him off the ball a little bit. And I keep saying the word aggressive, but I mean, have him play comfortable. Have it look natural. Have him do what he's going to do on defense and let him do some things on offense, whether it is, be the 2 guard and make an aggressive play, whether it is be a point guard and run the offense. I mean, kind of take the reins off the kid, see what he shows you. Then you go from there for a little bit. And if the team plays better with Trey Burke at point guard, you got to roll with that because you don't want to lose the team and just say we're going to be a dud from the start. If whatever Frank shows you, let him be good at that for a little bit. Try to develop the other stuff on the side. And then when the inevitable Knicks part of the season comes, when it's the fat lady singing, if you will, then try to force it a little more and try to develop him either as a point guard or as a 2, whatever he's struggling with, so he can try to grow in that area. And I don't know. Is it crazy that I think that's obvious, Ken?
No, and I think that is the answer. Is you just got to let Frank play. And I've been pretty clear that I want him to be a point guard in the future. But that doesn't mean that I'm completely against him playing off guard at any point during the game. I just want to make sure that he gets reps at point guard. And I know it's a conversation that we brought up a lot in the other preview pods, but the fourth quarter minutes, I think Frank is going to be out there one way or another for his defense. Whether it's point guard, I'm not sure. It's going to depend on how he develops that throughout the season, but he will be out there to play defense. And, the second guard spot could be Trey Burke, depending on if he regresses a little bit or if he, keeps up what he did last year. If Emmanuel Mudiay, pulls it all together and becomes the player that the Nuggets thought that they drafted, he could be out there. Or it could be Frank at point guard, Courtney Lee, and Tim Hardaway Jr. out there at the 2 and the 3. So, like I said, just giving him the option to play gives you so many more options of what you can do with your lineups, regardless of how you want to match up players. And that's his big value, and that's what I want to see from the Knicks this year.
Hit him with it. Well, I think we laid a lot out there, boys. I think it's kind of funny right now. I'm looking at his projection for this season from Basketball Reference. They have him projected for 10.5 points, 5.3 assists, and 4 boards. I feel like my expectations are a little lower. I'm trying to think. Let's wrap it up this way: over under points, rebounds, and assists. So all 3 points, rebounds, and assists. I'll give you an over under of 17. So that could be 10, 3, and 4, 10, 4, and 3. Or any way you could get over or under that, Tom. What do you got?
I am not sure. I don't think Frank will be averaging double-digit points this year. I think that'd be a pretty major leap from what he did last season. And I'm seeing that those are per 36 minutes too, those projections. And I don't know that they expect him to average 36 minutes a game. So I don't think they're looking at 10.6 points per game either on Basketball Reference. So
no, Tom, that's not the per. Oh, that is the per 36. I'm sorry. Edit me.
So no, I'm thinking per game. I'm thinking it'll be somewhere in the realm of like 8 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds. So what's that add up to? 16?
So you're closer than you think, Tom.
Yeah, no, but I'm going to have to take the shade under there.
Okay.
I know Kenny's going to be going over.
Hammer it.
I'm not going to be going over because I'm a realist, Tom.
Wow.
I'm optimistic about Frank's future, but I'm a realist for this season, and I'm a little upset because the line that you just said was exactly what I was going to say. My expectation would be, or my hope would be 8-4-4. So I'm taking the under.
I'm calling you guys soft again, and call me a dreamer. You may say I'm the only one, but this guy in 22 minutes, a very limited 22 minutes with, pardon my French, huh? You see what I did there? But a pretty poor coach last year. This guy had nights where he'd play some serious minutes. You wouldn't see him the next night. He's going to grow as a player. It's tough to see his shooting percentages go down. I see his minutes getting up to 28 minutes, and there's nights when this guy fills up a box score. So call me crazy, call me maybe. Give me what? A 9.5, a 4.5, and a 4. So a little bit more. This is a guy who was a young man without the NBA body, who didn't go to the free throw line in half his games last year. And I think they have to push that. They have to push the 3-point shooting. And Ken, I think you and me talked about it the most. This kid can pass. He's looking to pass. And I don't know if it's going to be on the break. I don't know if it's Trey Burke, Knox, or whoever it is. I think this guy can fill out the stat sheet. And I think that's going to be the message the coaches are pushing more than point guard, shooting guard, or whatever this year. They're going to say, Frank, go out and get rebounds, get points, get blocks, get steals. We want no zeros on that stat sheet. And I think if they give him that speech, I think he can do that. Any of you guys want to shut me up?
No, I think that's important just to preach patience with him too, though. He's, like you said, he was a young French man coming into the league. He is still a very young man. Like, what do we say, 21? Or is he 20?
20.
20? I mean,
turned 20 in July, too. I think he's a young 20.
There is plenty of time for him to be actually filling up stat sheets. And, yeah, we want to see the progress as much as you do. But, I mean, by no means would I think it's a failure if he doesn't reach that 9.5, 4.5, 4 line. I think an 8-4-4 line would still be respectable and still be in line with what we're hoping for him. But, again, it all matters like how he does it, right? The efficiency, the turnovers, hopefully cutting back on the turnovers from last season. Whether or not his season is a success won't all boil down to what his stat line is. But no, I'm with you. I like your optimism, and I want you to remember he's still very young, and there'll be a lot of time for his development in years to come too.
Ken, round it out for us, bud.
Yeah, and I think as far as filling out the stat sheet, I don't know if it's this year, but I think in the future this is going to be a guy who comes up with that coveted 5x5 game at some point. He's shown the ability to get steals. He's shown the ability to block shots, especially with a couple in the Brooklyn Nets game. And, he can go out there, rebound, and pass it well enough to get up to 5 on all of those. And if it's this year, I would be, amazed. But I think at some point he's going to be that kind of guy.
Predict it, Kenny. Predict the 5x5 this year.
I'm going to predict he averages a 5x5 this year.
Okay.
Oh boy.
Is that too much?
Boy.
No, too much. No, but I'll say that he's going to get close this year, and it's a possibility that because he's going to show the flashes, and one of these games he's just going to put it all together, and you're going to say, "Wow, this guy's really got game."
Well, that was a lot of smoke from us about Frankie Smokes. A lot of pardoning our French about the franchise. I'll keep going, baby. No, I won't. I believe this or Knox, depending what order you listen to him, will be our last PPP, player profile and projection. Burn through them. You're bored at work. You're driving home. A little scouting report on each player and what we're expecting to see this year. If you've been listening, we cannot thank you enough. And if you'd be nice enough to leave us a 5-star review on the podcast app, we'd appreciate you. For Thomas and Ken, signing off and ready to get this Knicks season going, I'm Jake Storielli. I forget how to say it sometimes, but hey, let's go Knicks.
Knicks tape.
Insane.